everyone, welcome to Inconvenient Truths. I'm your host, Jennifer Zeng. Long time no see. Last week, I released an exclusive interview with a medical professional who worked at a hospital in Wuhan last year during the peak of the COVID-19 or CCP virus pandemic. Let me show you the picture. So he revealed many astonishing facts for the first time, including he saw over 1,000 bodies piling up in the parking lot of the hospital, and that the whistleblower of the pandemic, Dr. Lijun, could have been murdered by the CCP. As I thought it was also very important for the Chinese-speaking people to watch and understand this interview as well, so I spent some time to translate the interview into Chinese and to add both English and Chinese subtitles to it. That's why I only did this one video last week. If you haven't watched it, please go back and take a look. Today, I will talk about a very hot issue in China in the past several days. That is the ousting of two former high-level officials of the CCP's political and legal system. What lies behind these incidents and what can happen next. Before that, let me give you a quick update on China's much troubled real estate developer Evergrande. We have done several shows about it already. Yesterday, trading in Evergrande shares was suspended on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. Evergrande issued an announcement and said that there would be a major transaction without giving any more details. The CCP's mouthpiece Global Times reported that another property developer called Hongsen Development will acquire about 51% of Evergrande Group's property management unit, and the deal could be valued at more than $5.14 billion. We've reported before that Evergrande total debt is as high as nearly 2 trillion yuan or $310 billion. That is the number on the company's books. However, according to international investment bank Goldman Sachs, there is yet another 1 trillion yuan or more than $150 billion, which is not on Evergrande balance sheet. So this is the share price of China Evergrande on Hong Kong market. Before, on its last trading day, the price closed at 2.95 Hong Kong dollars. And the highest price of the stock in the past year was about 20 Hong Kong dollars. So this is a more than 80% drop. So will Evergrande still be salvable? We will have to watch and see. This year's October 1st was the 72nd anniversary of the CCP regimes in China. Usually, people can enjoy a week-long holiday because of the so-called National Day. But this year, two somewhat shocking events brought about a different flavor to this national celebration. One day before the National Day, that's on September 30th, former Vice Minister of Public Security Lijun was ousted, which means he was expelled from the CCP and from his job, and his case will be transferred to the legal system to be further charged. So the CCP always operates like this. When any of its high-level officials need to be punished, the first punishment will be expulsion from the party. The second punishment will be removing you from your post. And only the third one will be from the legal system, such as sentencing and putting you into prison, etc. So in CCP's China, the legal system is less important than the CCP membership and one's official position, and is only a tool for the CCP to further punish those who have been removed from the party and their posts. Anyway, then, one day after the National Day, on October the 2nd, CCP's former Justice Minister and head of infamous 16 office, Zhenghua, let's see his photo, was put under investigation by the CCP's Discipline Inspection Commission. So you can see both Lijun and Zhenghua had reached almost the highest position in the CCP's legal and public security system, and their jobs were supposed to safeguard the public security and to catch bad people. How come they turned out to be bad people themselves? This brings us to the next talking point. The CCP Central Discipline Inspection Commission issued a very harshly worded statement about Lijun. So this is the statement. The expression and the phrases include extremely inflected political ambitions, recklessly discussing the central government's major policies, creating and spreading political rumors, deceiving his superiors as well as subordinates to gain political capital in order to achieve his personal political goals. He did whatever he could, engaging in gas tourism, gas inflection, cultivating personal power, forming gas to control key departments, abusing power, abandoning his post on the front line of pandemic fighting, secretly hiding a large number of classified materials, using public security investigative techniques to confront investigation against him, etc. I don't know how you feel after listening to all this. I bet you find it hard to understand. Actually, even if you speak Chinese, you will still find it hard to understand, as the CCP had its own gesture language that needs to be translated into normal Chinese and then English. Anyway, to put it simply, Lijun's main crimes are to organize his own gang inside the public security system to achieve his own political ambitions. These are the common crimes that apply to almost every single removed CCP official. However, there are two items that belong only to Lijun, and they are abandoning his post on the front line of pandemic fighting and secretly hiding a large number of classified materials. Now, let's explain them one by one. Actually, these two crimes are closely related issues. You know, during the peak of the CCP virus outbreak in Wuhan, that was in February last year, Lijun was sent to the city to inspect and direct the pandemic fighting efforts there. You might wonder why the CCP needed to send a police head to get involved in the pandemic fighting effort. Well, in China, everyone regarded this as the need for the CCP to maintain the so-called social stability, public order, or to suppress out-of-order affairs caused by the harsh measurement during the pandemic. So, Lijun's crime of abandoning his post on the front line of pandemic fighting obviously means that he had abandoned his job during that time and had gone elsewhere to do something else. So, what did he do? Actually, Lijun's professional training was not in the legal area. He graduated from Shanghai International Studies University. Oh no. Yeah, this university with a degree in English and then did his postgraduate study in public health and urban management at the University of New South Wales in Australia, and served in the Foreign Affairs Office of the Shanghai Health Bureau and the Foreign Affairs Office of the Shanghai government after returning to China. Also, Chinese language media have been reporting that Sun Lijun's wife and son live in Australia. His wife has gained Australian citizenship, and his son has permanent residence in Australia, etc. According to Professor Yuan Hongbin, this is Yuan Hongbin's photo, who lives in Australia now, Sun Lijun had sent his secret envoy to contact Yuan several times before Sun was removed from his post. The purpose of the contact was because Sun felt that he needed to prepare a way out for himself, as the internal power struggle within the CCP was very fierce and anything could happen. So according to Professor Yuan, Sun Lijun had hidden a lot of secret documents of the CCP as a way to protect himself. And among those, the most sensitive document is about the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Yuan said the document was about how a logistic officer and a staff member of Wuhan Institute of Virology had been taking the experimental animals to Wuhan seafood market to sell them for profit, and this resulted in the leaking of the virus from the lab. Actually, I did a program as early as last May with the title Origin of the CCP Virus, the missing piece of the puzzle. The missing piece I talked about in that video was exactly the possibility of the virus getting escaped from the Wuhan lab because of poor management of the animals used to do experiments. So it seems that what Professor Yuan said goes in line with what I said more than 1 year ago. Also, Elmer Yuan, a Hong Kong businessman I once interviewed. So this is his photo when receiving my interview. So he revealed that Australian intelligence agency has intercepted secret information about the CCP virus or COVID-19 from the CCP when Sun Lijun tried to secretly hand over the information to his wife in Australia for her to keep. So Australia has more inside information about the CCP virus that other countries don't have. And that was why Australia was the first country that said the CCP needed to be held responsible for the spread of the CCP virus pandemic. So now, if we put all these allegations together with the CCP's official statement of Sun Lijun secretly hiding a large number of classified materials, it seems that everything falls into their places, and that Sun Lijun may have indeed hidden materials about the origin of the CCP virus, as well as the cover-ups of the CCP. That's why he had to be punished very severely. So another Chinese language YouTuber tells a more explosive story. Remember in one of our previous shows, let me show you. Yeah, they titled Deleted Report Assassination Plot of the CCP's Intensifying Power Struggles. We talked about a failed assassination attempt to kill Xi Jinping committed by Luo Wenjin. So this is Luo Wenjin. He's the former police chief of the Criminal Investigation Department of Jiangsu Province. Well, according to this YouTuber, The assassination attempt was actually not to be carried out in Nanjing in 2017, but was in Wuhan in 2020, when Xi Jinping went there to inspect the pandemic control work in March. According to this YouTuber, Beijing initially said that Xi Jinping would visit Wuhan on March 17th, but Xi suddenly changed the date to March 10th, and he only stayed in Wuhan for 2 to 3 hours under the protection of 30,000 strong military and police forces. So this is the photo of Xi Jinping sitting in Wuhan on that day as a lonely dictator. And this photo was once named photo of the day. So that was on March 10th. So because it was said that because Xi Jinping suddenly changed his schedule, Sun Lijun felt he didn't have the confidence to carry out the planned assassination, so he fled Wuhan and didn't get himself involved in that plan, and that's why the assassination failed. Anyway, these are just some rumors that we cannot prove or disprove. But from the way that Sun Lijun was punished, and from the wording of the statement about Sun Lijun by the CCP's Discipline Inspection Commission, we can certainly know that Sun could have participated in some sort of coup attempt to get rid of Xi Jinping. Now, let's move to Fu Zhenhua's stories. The fact that Fu Zhenhua's removal was announced only 2 days after Sun Lijun's punishment gave us enough reason to believe that Fu Zhenhua's case is somewhat related to Sun Lijun's. Another piece of evidence is that Sun Lijun was removed from his post on April 19th last year. Then, on the following day, on April 20th, Fu stepped down from the post of Deputy Secretary of the CCP branch at the Ministry of Justice. Then, on April 29th, he was further removed from the post of Minister of Justice. It seems that it took the CCP 17 months to investigate Sun's problems. So only after 17 months since Sun was removed from his position last April was the CCP ready to announce what kind of crimes he had committed. And then Fu Zhenhua was immediately put under investigation too. So from the timeline of the events, people tend to believe that the two top former CCP police and Justice Department heads are connected with each other, although we don't have evidence that Fu was also involved in the assassination attempt to kill Xi Jinping. But there was a famous event back in 2016 when 5 police officers in Beijing were arrested for causing the death of a young man called Lei Yang. Let's show his photo. So this is Lei Yang. He was wrongly arrested by the 5 police and was beaten to death or tortured to death only 1 day since his arrest. So after the 5 police officers were arrested for Lei Yang's death, Fu Zhenhua, who was the Vice Minister of Public Security then, incited more than 4,000 police officers in Beijing to co-sign a letter to Xi Jinping. All of the 4,000 police officers threatened that they would resign if the 5 arrested officers were punished. And they also threatened that Beijing would sink into chaos if Xi Jinping didn't listen to him. As a result, Xi gave in and released the 5 officers. So since then, Xi Jinping was very unhappy about Fu. However, since Fu Zhenhua had been working in the public security system for decades and had many supporters, it was not easy to remove him. It was also said that one of Fu Zhenhua's supporters within the police system once openly claimed that Fu Zhenhua even dared to monitor Xi Jinping and other CCP top leaders' phone calls. Now let's go to our next talking points. Oh no, not this one. This one. So we also need to mention that another very important title of Fu Zhenhua, which was the head of the 610 office. The CCP 610 office was set up on June 10, 1999 by CCP's former head Jiang Zemin, right before the persecution of Falun Gong officially started on July 20, 1999. Its only mission was to persecute Falun Gong, and it overrides all judicial, legal, and administrative systems and has absolute power to do anything to innocent Falun Gong practitioners. It operates like Nazis' Gestapo or former Soviet Union's KGB, and is only worse. At one stage, this 610 system employed over 1 million people to do the persecution at all levels. Actually, when we discuss the CCP's power struggle, there is an important issue that should not be ignored, but is often overlooked. And that issue is Falun Gong, a peaceful spiritual self-improvement system that had attracted tens of millions of people in China before 1999. And exactly because of its popularity, the then CCP leader Jiang Zemin decided to persecute and eliminate it. In terms of the scale and the severity, the persecution of Falun Gong is no doubt one of the most severe human rights disasters in China. The forced organ harvesting and the organ transplant business is even more astonishing and beyond evil. In the past 21 years, it is estimated that as many as 2 million people or more could have been killed for their organs based on the scale of China's organ transplant industry, and the majority of the victims were Falun Gong practitioners. So imagine if this kind of anti-humanity crime is fully exposed, with all evidence presented to the world, what the consequences could be for Jiang Zemin, who started the persecution. So from Jiang Zemin's point of view, he can only rest assured if his successors also actively persecute Falun Gong. In this way, everybody has blood in their hands, and everybody will continue to cover up the persecution and to carry it on. However, from Xi Jinping's attitude, Jiang Zemin could see that Xi had been unwilling to inherit this political or human rights legacy left over by Jiang Zemin. Instead, Xi Jinping dismantled the labor camp system in China that had been used as the main tool to persecute Falun Gong back in 2013, 1 year after he came to power. Although the persecution of Falun Gong has never stopped since then, in the eyes of Jiang Zemin and those who had too much blood in their hands, Xi Jinping's attitude made them uneasy and not good enough, as they knew it was a matter of life and death if they lost in the power struggles. Many of their gang members are already in prison. So far, 7 central-level 610 office heads, including Fu Zhenhua, Sun Lijun, and let me show you the photos of the other ones. So this one is Peng Bo, and then this one is Li Dongsheng, and then this one is Zhou Yongkang, and this one Zhou Benshun, and this one Zhang Yue. So all of them were central level 610 office heads. They have all been removed from the post so far, and nearly 2,000 lower-level 610 office officials have also encountered bad consequences one way or the other. So some Chinese people call the position within the 610 office the death position, as it brings bad luck to people who persecute innocent believers of truth, compassion, and tolerance, which are the main principles of Falun Gong. Of course, on the surface, none of them were punished for persecuting Falun Gong, as the persecution of Falun Gong is still going on in China. Most of them were punished for corruption or abuse of power. As for those people who actively persecute Falun Gong, most of the time they do other bad things too. So for China observers, the Falun Gong factor should definitely not be ignored if we look at the deadly power struggles within the CCP. So who were they? So who will be the next? Many people say that Meng Jianzhu. Let's show a photo of him. So he is the former Secretary of Central Political and Legal Affairs Commission, who was also once the Minister of Public Security, is in danger. Some also say that Zheng Qinghong, this is his photo, he is the former vice chairman of China and a long-time enabler and ally of Jiang Zemin, can be Xi Jinping's ultimate political enemy to remove before Xi can ensure that he stays in power at the 20th National Congress of the CCP, which will be held next year. So Xi Jinping has only less than 1 year to remove Zheng Qinghong and other obstacles on his way to his lifelong power. Therefore, we shouldn't be surprised to see more high-level CCP officials get ousted in the near future. Well, that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. Please do help me spread the message and ask more people to come and watch my videos. Thank you. See you next time.